Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a woodturner, for woodturners. Well, welcome back to part 2 of the fidget spinner. We're getting ready to mount the finished blank so we can finish the other side. You be quiet. Never wants to stop. Anyway, I got this really cool gizmo here I built. This is a jam chuck, and it's got multi-layers to it, and it's going to do multiple functions for us. But the cool thing is that this slides onto here, and it's a jam fit, so it goes on pretty tight. So that's not really going to come off. This is soft maple, so it gives a little bit. If you notice here, I took this down on the edge here so I'd have some ability to get around the corner, because if I start sanding and mess up this rim, I need to go a little bit that way. And so right now I've got that pushed up there. The first thing I want to do is I want to start curving this edge again, and then I'm going to clean that face up just a little bit. You do want to take delicate cuts. Oops, there it is. Because you don't want to push really hard on a jam chuck, because it could come off. And actually, I'll show you one trick I did. Let me see if I can do this here still. That one's a little big. Where's this one? You can actually take a cone center and put it up against here like so, and it will push in. I just don't have, I went too small, so I have another cone center that's smaller, but it's unavailable right now. So we'll go ahead and do this freehand. And if it flies off, I'll show you how to use the cone center. So I'll turn this on. Now that base behind here is pretty thick, so as I pull on this edge, I should have pretty good support. But I'm just doing a very light cut. All I'm wanting to do is break this edge and match that curve I have on the other side. If you turn this tool up like that, all of a sudden you put your foot on the gas and you're going to get a big catch. Bringing it down here, you're taking your foot off the gas and coasting. And it will dull edge your tool a little quicker because I'm scraping, but I'd rather scrape than get a catch at this point. If your jam chuck, by the way, doesn't fit quite right, and this is a little bit loose, and you do not have a cone center to bring up to help it out, what you can do is put a little piece of paper towel in there, and it'll jam up around the edges and help it fit better. We're going to actually use that technique when we mount the, I don't know what you call them, the little thumb holders or finger holders for the blank when we put the fidget spinner together. But anyway, that's looking pretty even. Now, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to take this and move it this way. So we're going to come across and just make one little bitty pass. Make sure I'm at the right height, and I just want to clean this up. I might pull actually, because it'll be easier. I want to pull that so when I start sanding, I'll have less to sand. Now you might think that because I have this little tenon in the middle, that this little bit of wood that I'm missing that goes right up to it is important, but it's not. Because our little thumb pieces that we make on our fidget spinner, let me show you right here, got dust on it, but this is actually wider than that, so it's going to cover up anything that I don't sand in there. So that's pretty cool. So next thing I do, I'm going to sand this, and then we'll be ready to work on those little finger holder thingies, whatever. I'm sure there's a real name for that, but I have no idea. Oh, get some face masks on. Always make sure you have your dust collector running in the background before you do anything like this, because your lungs, you only get one pair. Now, what a pair. Okay. Get this sanded, and we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to move on to Now I've mounted a blank of Cocobolo in here, and I've rounded it down to a little bit proud of an inch. Yeah, we're going to shoot for about an inch when we're done. But the thing I want to do is start turning the tenon that is going to fit inside of this wheel, inside of this bearing. And just by trial and error, I found out that 5/16 fits in there really well. So that's going to be my measurement that I put onto my calipers so I can make sure I make my tenon right. And we're going to use this to test fit, so we're not going to screw up too badly, I don't think. So anyway, I have a parting tool. Didn't part away from me, did it? There it is. Okay, cool. So we're going to turn this on. And let's see here. I'm looking around the camera this time. We're going to kind of guess at this. I'm just going to go down for a little bit here. I love turning Cocobolo. It is probably my favorite wood to turn because it's so smooth, it's so dense. It has its own oil in it, and a really high oil content, so it takes a great shine, a great sanding. And you can see I'm still a ways away from that, but we're going to sneak our way in. I think Brian's got the only view of this one now. So one-handed parting tooling is great, if you can do it. Anyway, I'm just going to come in. I barely want to slip over. And I'm kind of canting. There you go. I'm kind of turning the tool this way so that tip is the narrowest part. So let's turn that off. I guess it's a bearing. I could have held it up. There wasn't any danger. Okay, so that went on just right. I feel a little resistance. You can see the gap. That's where my resistance is. So that is probably the width I want to make. So I'm going to take this down just a little bit more and see how it fits. I don't want this to be too long, by the way. We will part that off because I only want it to go at most halfway through the bearing because we're going to have another one coming from the other side. Shave that wood. Okay. And if this fits just a little bit loose, don't worry because I have a trick for that. That's nice. I think that's just about right. It is just about right length too. I'm not going to worry about the length. The next thing I have to do though is, let's see if I can show this here. If you look, let me get a pencil. Okay, this is the rim of the bearing. This is the axle of the bearing. This is the seal over the ball bearings. So this keeps dirt and junk from getting inside. By the way, you don't want these to be lubricated. If they're lubricated, they don't work as well. You want dry bearings. I guess it works better that way because ceramics is really smooth. But anyway, this little thing is a ridge right here. You can see that it raises up above that a bit. We want this part to have another bumper that rests on here that brings us up and away from the top of the bearing. That way this part doesn't touch the top and kill the spin. Clear as mud? Yeah. Well, watch me do it and then you'll see what I mean. Something like that. So we're going to make one more cut and it's going to be about a 1/16 of an inch. That should give us enough height. Okay, now that is just about the diameter of that little hub. Come in just a little bit more. Okay, so now let's put the bearing up. Glad I have pockets. So now, see, the bearing is being held away from the wood. So now that little button is not going to touch the wood that spins because our wood blank is actually a little bit thicker. So when this goes in, I don't want to push it in, it might get stuck, but you can see we're going to have a little bit of a clearance issue. So this one is a little thicker than my last one, so I'm actually going to make that bump a little higher just to be on the safe side. And then we're going to start shaping the button itself. So once I do that, we're going to part the button off, and then we're going to show you how we work on that end of the button, on the bottom part, top part, but button, how we work on the button. Okay, once you have your first one parted off, you start making the tenon for the second one, right? And what we want to do is do a test fit because depending on the width of this, depends on how you have to assemble this. And so you want to make sure that it will spin. And so I got clearance on both sides, and that looks pretty good. Now that we got our buttons done, we got to work on this end of the button. So I want to clean up the bad surface that I left on there because that's just from parting off. But anyway, you can see I've got my handy dandy chuck that we used to do the bigger part of the fidget spinner earlier, right? So we used the jam chuck to fit in there. Well, we're going to go the opposite way. I've drilled a 5/16 inch hole into there, and so this is going to fit the tenon in there. Let's pick one. And the deal is that since this is maple, I've done this a couple times, it's a little bit loose, right? So what we want to do is take a little piece of paper towel, just take a corner. We're going to take that corner and put it over the tenon. Then we'll come back into here now, and this fits it in there much tighter. So anyway, all I'm wanting to do is just take a spindle gouge and just take a real fine pass on there because I want to dish it out just a little bit. So famous last words, one more cut. So we'll see how this goes. Since we're pushing in with the heel, it should work well. We'll see how this goes. You do want a little bit of speed. It's going to wobble a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that part. This is not my normal stance. I just can't see around the camera. You can see we're just taking off a little bit of wood, getting that dish out right there. Now you can sand this way if you want to, but I wanted to just show off a bit. There, that looks good. That's nice and dished out. This is pretty thin, so you don't want to go all the way through the bottom, that's for sure. But anyway, I've got a little, oh yeah, it's a nice little indentation your thumb just wants to sit in it or your finger does. So I'm going to do that to both of them. I'm going to sand them, and then we're ready for assemblage. It's a word. It really is. Right. Well, we got all our parts, right? Now we need to assemble this. Well, the issue is since this is a sealed bearing, if you get any glue on top of this, it's going to screw things up, I think, because it could slip through that little bit of a seal there. So how do you put this on here? Well, the technique I came up with, and believe me, you guys can go ahead and improve on it if you want to, because I'm not too sure if it's the best way, but it worked. I'm going to take some paper towel, fold it up, make myself basically a little paintbrush of my paper towel. I'm going to take a little bit, just a couple drops of thick CA glue. I don't need much, so there we go. So I'm going to take this and then very gently try to paint the wheel just to get a coat on there. And obviously you don't want to get it on your fingers either, that would be bad, which it's going to happen. So you could wear the gloves that I forgot to put on there or sitting right over there. Anyway, so you have a little bit of working time with this. You know how manhole covers are made, and the reason they're round is because a circle won't drop into a circle the same diameter. That's how I'm going to get this in here. I'm going to bring my finger up from the underside and push up, and now it drops in. So now I'm in there centered, right? So we're going to cover our glue there so I don't screw that up. And we're going to take a little bit of the accelerator and go. And so we've accelerated the glue right now, and hopefully that's holding already. Yes, it is. We'll come to the other side. And you can see I've got a bit of a gap here, so I could have made this thinner. That would have worked a lot nicer because this one's really thin and it really is cool. But anyway, away from that. So how do you go about attaching these? Well, you can't glue these in here, I think, because if you put glue on here, it's going to run all over everything, right, and get you into a lot of trouble. Oops, I got a little... there, clean that up a bit. So I came up with an idea, and it's working for me right now. And I don't know why, but it's working great. So I'm going to take a piece of masking tape and cut it to about a square. It's just a little bit larger than the hole. So I found out that if I have my tenons made right and I put this here and push this in, it jam fits it in there. In this case, I just push the disc back out. So I'll do my glue up again. But anyway, by putting, let me take this out since it wants to come out. Maybe it doesn't want to come out. Okay. It's stuck in there pretty good. See, it's moving a little bit. But anyway, once that's glued in there, when this pushes in, it's like a jam fit chuck, and it really, really holds that in there well. So it doesn't want to move at all. So anyway, that's how I assemble that. Then get the other one on the other side. This is too big a piece of tape, but I'll give it to you for an idea here. So that will go in like so. Now, you probably are going to want to put a finish on this before you do this last step. And I should have put a better finish on this because Dooley got hold of it like you saw in the video, and it's got some slobber marks on it, so it needed another coat or two. Then you want to put a little bit of wax on there. But anyway, this is what you're going to wind up with. But remember I said I'd go about 1 minute and 15 seconds with this as my best hand spin? Well, I got one for you. If you're a wood turner, you can kick butt on anybody who has one of these things. I can get 2.5 minutes this way. That is an awesome spinner. Boy, you can feel the G-forces when you do that. I can get 2.5 minutes with this one. But anyway, so that is how you make a fidget spinner from Bubinga and Cocobolo. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time on Wood Turning, keep turning.
Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a wood turner for wood turners.